Terry Mills, thank you very much for your time. It's obviously been a very challenging couple of days, and I mean challenging in every sense of the word. Do you still deny that your position as Chief Minister of the Northern Territory and as leader of the country Liberals was under threat during that marathon crisis meeting yesterday?
No, the issue was never the leadership of the Country Liberal Party. The issue was that we needed to resolve an internal matter, and what we had available to us was an opportunity to have a circuit breaker, and the position of deputy was made available. And so there was this opportunity to thrash out a number of issues, and the decision was made that we would offer that position to Adam Giles, but that position wasn't taken.
You might have gone into the meeting with the position, with the idea of finding a new deputy, but did Adam Giles want your job at any stage during that meeting?
Well, that view was expressed at one point during the meeting, but the view of the room was solidly against such a proposition. What we need to do is to deal with the internal issue and to find a new way forward. There was a genuine effort made to bring resolution to internal issues and focus on the things that really matter in the Territory, and I think we've been able to achieve that.
You mentioned there was opposition to that move. That comes probably in the form of Alison Anderson, who we understand threatened to withdraw her support for the CLP if Adam Giles was made the new Chief Minister. That said, by doing that and taking that position, is she effectively holding the party to ransom?
Oh, okay. I think there's a few things there that need to be addressed. First up, there was strong support from the room for a resolution to deal with the underlying issues, and that's right across the board. Now, the way that Alison's contribution has been portrayed in the media, I think is incorrect, and it needs to be corrected. That was offered as a circuit breaker, and in that context, it was to alert those members of the room and those that wouldn't participate in the resolution that there are many issues at stake outside of this room. So we've got to bear in mind the things that are really important to Territorians, whether they're remote or in urban communities, that we have to bear that in mind. So if we're going to play these sort of games, then we need to consider that. And if you want to continue this game and try to wreck the show, I'm out of here.
But that was a circuit break. She's got a lot of influence, though, doesn't she?
Well, apparently she's one member, but I don't think it's fair to represent this in the sense that the others cannot think for themselves. And I think that really is quite an offensive position to run in the community, because that is certainly not the case. The issue here is that there was a reminder. It was offered as a circuit breaker, and it's been sadly misrepresented, and I think it creates division and hostility in our community, divides black against white, and that's never the intention. It was a circuit breaker to remind people that there are issues much bigger than the egos in this room.
Okay, we'll move on. You've dumped Dave Tollner from Cabinet, and in all respect to Leah Finocchiaro, she doesn't have anywhere as near the experience as what Dave does. Where did Dave Tollner fail as a minister?
Well, there are decisions that a Chief Minister makes, and I think there's been a fair bit of commentary. I don't like to comment on what actually happens in a Cabinet meeting, but nonetheless, I was required to make a decision, and my Cabinet colleagues would expect me to make that decision, and I have made a decision to ask Dave Tollner to step aside from the Cabinet for a time. He needs to go to the backbench. We need to bring someone new in.
So he'll come back?
It's a possibility. It's up to Dave.
It's up to you.
Well, I mean, he has served in Cabinet, and I've made a decision to have him removed from the Cabinet, and I set a new Cabinet, and that is my prerogative as Chief Minister. But really, the ball is now in Dave's court. He's still a Member of Parliament. He can still contribute, and he can still, and he's more than welcome to make a contribution, but not at this time in Cabinet.
It's clearly a very bitterly divided party. How can Territorians trust your government?
Actually, I don't think it is bitterly divided. There are some who have a particular point of view, but the vast majority support the Chief Minister and support the Cabinet. It's been represented in a particular way, but I dispute that. There is overwhelming support for my leadership, both within the Cabinet, within the wing, and within the wider parties we saw at Tennant Creek a couple of weeks ago.
Delia Laurie quite colourfully likened your situation to that of the TV show Survivor. Has the tribe spoken? Is it time to go?
No, not at all. It's time to turn our attention to the mess that we have been left with, and it's not in any way to talk about this as a blame game on Labor. We've got a job to do. We have debt to clear up, we have waste to get rid of, and then turn our attention to things that matter. That's why I'm going to Japan tomorrow, to make sure that we can secure a better gas deal for the Northern Territory and secure our future. We're thinking about those things. They're the sorts of things that actually matter here.
Well, Terry Mills, you certainly are a survivor at the moment. You've survived a couple of challenges, although you say this one wasn't one. I suppose that Japan trip you mentioned might feel like you've won the immunity idol. You can get away from this for a couple of days.
Every day is a challenge, but the challenge is to make sure we serve the best interests of Territorians. That's what I continue to do.
Chief Minister, thank you.
Thank you.
This is The Territory Decides. Election 2012. Live and commercial free.
Welcome again. And ahead lies one of the most significant events in Northern Territory history. Election night 2012, a night when we learn who will control our destiny over the next 4 years. Have the country Liberals made a conscious effort this time to target those rural outback seats, a lot more than what you have in the past?
Absolutely. Look, this is, I think, certainly in my involvement in the party.
So Marion Scrimgew's retirement's really opened up that one. So, okay, the next seat we're going to take a look at is Araluen. Robin Lambley is the sitting member, and we all expected her to do extremely well, and surprise, surprise, she is. 1,521 votes, only 25% of the vote counted, but with numbers like those, that's not going to change at all down there in Central Australia.
Her primary was 68%, that's moved to 74%, a 6% swing to her.
I just think that it's an absolute nonsense and it shouldn't happen.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the state of the House now. This is the situation as it currently stands. Let's go inside the doors and see what's revealed. Lots of blue, a lot more blue than what's previously been there for the last few years, isn't there? As we swing around, gee, I'll tell you what, those Labor benches aren't like they used to be, are they?
It's got 14. I think our computer is about to give a 15th as well. So you're looking at a real margin, although when we say that we just slide back to 13. So it's moving still, but it's a dominant majority.
At the end of the day, the one thing that we're looking at here, though, overall, is that target of 13, and we haven't seen it. We did see it slip for a moment under that 13, but by and large, I think we're moving now 13, 14, 15. Are we not? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, probably around about that. And, 9 possibly to the Labor Party. It can make you an effective opposition.
It's a bit hot and sweaty down here, but everyone is packed in. We're watching 9. We're just waiting for that result.
Yes, we did notice that in the background, Kerry. Good to see that the country Liberals are watching Channel 9's rolling coverage, boys. So there you go.
Fantastic.
Good little wrap.
That cheer earlier might have been when I come on the screen.
They're obviously tuning into you, Haley.
Exactly. A little bit of an update. I said before that we were told to expect Paul Henderson in about 5 minutes' time. That would make it about now. We're hearing that it's actually about a quarter of an hour away now. Obviously, just gathering his thoughts on what he's going to say to the Labor Party faithful as he concedes defeat in this territory election. Let's get back and have a look at the seats. And Dave, well done, you had to wait all that time, but we're up to Fong Lim.
Oh yeah, have we got a proper result yet?
Let's take a look at Fong Lim, and you can, I'll let you decide, you call it and tell us whether you're going to claim victory here.
Well, I'm a bit worried about, only 56% of the votes counted, is that right, John?
It is 50.
Okay, Terry Mills, Paul Henderson, thank you very much for your opening addresses. Let's get stuck into some questions. I particularly want to start off with a topic that I think is a recurring theme through this election, and that is the cost of living. There's a number of Territorians really doing it tough here in Darwin and the Northern Territory. Chief Minister, I'll start with you. Labor's been in office now for 11 years here in the Northern Territory. Why is it only now that you're starting to roll out these programs to help Darwin families? And further to that, how have you let it get so bad?
Well, of course, if we're talking about the
Focus groups that then told you you've got a problem,
That's not
time
true,
to
Terry.
release the land, and you did that in 2008, and you've been playing catch up ever since.
Terry Mills, let's talk about your plans to reduce the cost of living for Darwin families. They seem to be very similar to Labor's plans as well. For instance, the back to school vouchers, it's an identical policy. How can we be so sure that you'll do a better job than what the Chief Minister will in Labor?
The biggest burden...
Chief Minister, you've talked about housing and you touched on this in your opening address, the My New Home scheme. Can I ask you though, how does that really help, for instance, first home buyers? The average home in Darwin at the moment, you don't get too much change from $600,000 by the time you throw stamp duty and everything else. How do first home buyers, those people really trying to break into the market, how can they possibly afford repayments? Let's be on a more modest home, let's say $500,000. The average repayments on a $500,000 loan at the moment is $800 a week. How does someone afford that?
Well, Jono, of course, not everybody gets into their first. The supply of housing will be increased as these 2,700 units that are shovel-ready come out of the ground.
Slogan.
4,500
real
blocks of
houses.
land.
Proper
ready-
planning.
Talk about
ready to
housing,
go.
gentlemen. We can talk
4,500
about housing
blocks of
forever.
land ready to go.
Shovel-ready. Get ahead of the game.
We've got a lot to get through, gentlemen.
You will take it.
They
You will
promised
take us
fireworks on
backwards.
9 years
You'll
today.
take us backwards and leave 1,000 people
Okay.
with their
Another
dreams.
Chief
15
Minister, Paul
years of
Anson.
this.
Thanks, Terry. Tell you what, you guys are tough, aren't you? Tough for a first gig. Chief Minister, let's move on. With all the spending and the promises, there is no doubt that it comes at a cost, and the Territory's debt is an issue. Why has the Territory slumped so much deeper into the red under your watch?
I am fallible. I've made mistakes. I apologise to anyone I've hurt, but I need to go on. You know, you can't live in the past the rest of your life.
The electorate needs to know who they're voting for. What happened back in 2009?
Well, the matter was confidential. I signed a confidential agreement, and that confidential agreement does not allow me to say that, what was in that agreement.
You've mentioned that it wasn't physical. Text messages?
No, I can't say anything about it at all. It's confidential. Confidential.
What's your stance on sexual harassment?
I don't think it should happen. But, you know, as I said, I'm not perfect. Sometimes you can do things because you're naive. Sometimes you can do things because you're just plain stupid and dumb. And I'll admit, I could be all those three.
You say you should take a stand. Why wouldn't you take a stand on the issue of sexual harassment? Stand down?
Well, because there was no fault in the agreement. The agreement was confidential. I mean,
haven't you paid out money?
I can't tell you what was in that agreement. I've told you that. I can't tell you what was in that agreement.
Will you deny you've paid out money?
No, I can't say anything about the agreement because the people who broke the agreement have broken the agreement. It's confidential.
How can the public have faith in their politicians if politicians go around with brown paper bags giving away money, hush money?
Well, I don't think they can. And I'm not going to judge other people. People will have to judge me, and I'm telling you, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes.
How many other confidential agreements are out there?
Oh, I don't know. You better ask some of the other politicians.
Have you got any others?
No. Show me the person who hasn't made an error or mistake in their life. I want to work hard and continue to work hard for my community. People will judge me on the long term, not the short term.
Of course, as well as the party, there was also a race at Fanny Bay this afternoon. Now, Charles Croucher joins us now live to take a look at the Darwin Cup itself. We have to admit it off the top, we've had a win.
We have had a win. It was a very thrilling win and a very difficult win to get into, but just an incredible race. Let's take a look at it now. And even from the start, there was lots of contenders in this year's race. It was a bit of a different event because usually we have one or two favourites. Here there was 3 or 4 across the field. Stephen Brown, 2 horses. Neil Dyer, 2 horses. It'll be interesting to see how they interacted.
Now the one we're taking a look at, Hawke's Bay, you see it there on the rails. He jumped from barrier 1, shuffled back to around about 5th on that first corner, of course. And that's a critical corner to get in a good position early, isn't it? Because if you're caught wide here, your race can be won or lost before it's even over. We've got Palmyra Boy, Club Liquid going to the front here. And this order, as we said at the moment, is pretty much how it stayed for the bulk of the race.
It is. You saw Glare, number 7 there. It's dropping back on the right-hand side. It got itself in a bad spot. And you mentioned that first corner. It was one of the big horses, one of the big contenders. It ran around that first corner 3 wide, and from there it's a long way back to the post again if you get stuck that wide, and that proved so for Glare.
Now let's talk about the betting fluctuations before this race started. I think one of the very interesting parts of the Darwin Cup 2012 will be the massive plunge that was on Bolton. Stephen Brown's stable, of course. I think earlier on in the week they were throwing up $5, $6. Ended up getting backed into $2.60 for a while, ended up drifting to about $3. And Hawke's Bay was the big drifter.
It was. Quite incredible. Hawke's Bay is such a rich pedigree at this track. And on the other foot, Bolton's never won at Fanny Bay. We know it's a great horse. It's won in Victoria, it's won in South Australia, but never won at Stephen Brown's home track. There's reason it had great form coming in, certainly a great edge-way horse. But here as they round that back straight, Palmyra Boy out in front with Club Liquid. We suspected Club Liquid, the emergency, the old stayer, the former Cup champion, wouldn't be able to hold this pace. It was just who got the move here, and you saw Sheehan, the favourite, one of the favourites coming up, and also Bolton, Stephen Brown's 2 horses starting to move.
And here we have Hawke's Bay on the outside. You see him here in the pink silks, the pink cap, and the grey for Neil Dyer. Let's pick them up. On the home turn, our race caller is the mighty Mick Stumbles.
250, but here's Bolton down the outskirts of the track, out after Hawke's Bay there, clear of Club Liquid, Glare and Sheehan, Hawke's Bay and Bolton settle down to fight it out. Hawke's Bay the inside, Bolton the outside, Hawke's Bay, Bolton, they drive to the line. Oh, it's nearly a dead heat, maybe Bolton, a breath over Hawke's Bay.
Maybe Bolton was a mixed call on the line. It turns out it wasn't the case because it was Hawke's Bay on the inside that got there by the barest of margins, a short half head. Charles, was extraordinary. We were screaming in the newsroom, we have to admit.
Even a metre out or 2 metres out, you can see Bolton hits the lead here and almost gets the lunge just in time. It's like we've seen almost in the Olympics, that last couple of lunges to see where they go. Hawkey timed it perfectly. Stephen Arnold timed it perfectly as well on board.
The handicapper tried everything to stop Hawke's Bay winning another cup. 64.5 kilograms that horse carried today, over 2,000 metres. Neil Dyer, congratulations. That's an extraordinary effort.
It's his second win, of course, in a row. That's a rare feat in itself, and he's been runner-up twice before that. This is an extraordinary horse, one of the best that we've seen at Fenny Bay. There's no doubt about it.
Good on you, Charles. As they hit the line again, we'll leave it there. We'll have another recap a little later on, and of course, you'll join us for the rest of the day's sport as well.
Certainly.
Good on you, mate. Thanks very much, and a good win for the team as well.